Hi there! Today's video starts in the Norfolk countryside. I am armed with technology and a very loud horn. I'm actually heading towards some woodlands to collect some wild chestnuts. I've actually cooked chestnuts on the channel before using an air fryer, but today I want to do a little experiment. I want to collect some fresh chestnuts to start with, and wild ones, but also I want to cook them using 4 different methods. So I will be repeating the air fryer method once again, but also I want to do them on the hob, I want to do them in the oven, and I've got a wood burner, so I thought I'll do that also and compare, and I will let you know which ones taste better. So a little bit of fun to see how I get on. Julie and I were driving on this road the other day. We noticed lots on the floor. Clearly it's October and that is the ideal time. So if you've got the opportunity to collect some chestnuts in the wild, go for it. They're really tasty and also free, of course. One thing I've noticed though that I want to share with you, and it's a little bit cheeky and ironic, is all of a sudden, because I'm wearing a camera on my helmet, it's interesting to see how polite and caring the drivers around me are. Everybody give me tons of space when they overtake me. They give me the way. And it's ironic that actually it takes a little bit of feeling accountable for people to drive responsibly. But nevertheless, most important thing I suppose is that I'm safe. So little tip for you, if you stick one of those on your helmet, most probably you'll be a lot safer just because you drive the right behavior with drivers. I'll see you in a little while. In the meantime, I'll focus on using my bicycle in a responsible way so that I can see where I'm going and focusing on it. See you shortly. And here I am. I found a little spot tucked out of the way, still not far from the road, but it's a very minor road, so very safe. So, plenty here as you can see, and I've got my phone and my camera, so hopefully I'll be able to give you a good overview. I just picked one here from the floor. Can you see it? This is really green and it's very spiky. That's why I got my gloves on, by the way, not because it's cold, because they're really spiky. And I've been putting them in a bag. But let me show you one which has got an opening, and then you can see. I'll climb closer to the other camera. And if I open it up, you can see that there are 3 beautiful little chestnuts. They're not very big, but they're going to be really tasty. And obviously the job is going to be to remove this and keep these, but I'll do that at home. And of course you don't need to climb any tree because they naturally fall. Occasionally I hear the old lump because they keep dropping. See this one here, for example. This is really, here I'll use the telephone. This is really brown, and I suspect this is also very good and most probably easier to open. I'll just have a quick look. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a problem, so I'll put it in. And of course this is something you can do with your family. You can bring your children and obviously make sure that they got suitable gloves and they love it. Especially the thinking that you pick something from the wild and then you cook it and you eat it. I think it's quite lovely. Look at this one here. Amazing. It reminds me a little bit of an alien. And my bag is full. I've got my rucksack with me. I'll fill this twice and I'll see you back at home. And I am back. I'm going to share my catch, or you don't say catch, do you? You say load or yield with you. Oops. The only problem is that they are very spiky. They've been prickling all the way. Look, this is my bag is absolutely chocker with chestnuts. Hopefully you'll be able to see in the camera over there, and I'm very pleased with it. Also wanted to show you something very clever. Well, I think it's very clever. I'm going to show you my helmet. Look, off position, I press it once and that comes on and that comes on. I press it again, that starts flashing and that stays on. I press it once again, that starts flashing like a maniac, but that stays on. And that is actually how I had it on earlier. Press it again and the flash is normal and that stays off. And then press it again and it's off. I think it's really cool. I really like it. I suppose to people on the street I must look like an alien wearing a Christmas tree, especially with the camera, but it works and I really like it. So if you want to stay safe, get one of those. A flashing helmet. Anyway, I'm going to have to sit down at the table and wear some heavy gloves to do those, but I'll go and have a shower first and get cleaned up, and then we can make a start. See you in a minute. So what have I learned so far? Quite a lot, actually. The first lesson is that I thought that the very, very green spiky hedgehogs were going to be the ones giving me the better chestnuts. How wrong could I be? Because actually, if I pick one up here, look, I noticed that all of the very green ones, they got this white still and they don't look quite ready yet, but I'm sure they'll be fine. Whereas actually also I've learned that the very, very brown ones, conversely, the chestnuts inside, they were a little bit too dry and squishy. So the best ones were these ones here, where you had a little bit of green, a little bit of brown, but also where you had a little bit of an off color, not too brown, maybe like this one here. So lesson number one, do not necessarily pick the very, very green ones, because especially if they are closed, they are a little bit more difficult to open, but not necessarily they are the best chestnuts inside. Of course, this is going to go to Julie for composting, but I'll come back in a moment with lesson learned number two. Lesson number two, and maybe it isn't a lesson because I knew that they were smaller when I started picking them, but if you look at my chestnuts, they're not very big. I've actually put them in water. They've been in water for a good 45 minutes after I've given them a good wash. So depending on what you're looking for, really, in my case they're free. I know they're going to be very tender, and based on what I'm trying to establish today, I'm very happy that they'll be fine, just like big chestnuts. But of course, if you go access to larger chestnuts, I suspect might be a better return on your time investment. Lesson number three is that you're going to be making lots of new little friends. I'm going to show you one over here. Look, here it is. Oops, he flies. I didn't realize it was a flying one. He kept coming back, and I called him Bob. And inevitably, because you are picking something from the wild, you will end up with lots of little bugs mixed with your chestnuts. Here, I went and got him back. I wanted to show you. Off he goes. I'll go and put him outside and I'll come back. And Bob is off. So inevitably you're going to be bringing home lots of little bags. So I would suggest that you remove them from the shells either outside, or in my case I've got a little utility room with a separate sink and I was able to do it there quite neatly. So let's make a start. Obviously I haven't got that many, but it's perfectly okay for what I need to do. So the next job is to make a little incision on the top of the chestnut, and I'm using a little corrugated knife. This is actually a cheese knife, but also you could use a steak knife. These are very small, so actually they're very tender, so it doesn't matter what I use, it works. But just to give you an illustration, I'll pick one up which has got a nice curvature here. So you go on the side where there is a curvature, and then you go with a knife and just go along like this, and you do an entire cut all the way from the bottom to the other side. Also you can do a little cross, and I'll do some and some actually to see what is easier to open. So you go this way on the way up, and then you do a little cross like this, and this is what you end up with. I'll do it with this one to see if it's easier. And so you just gently score it, by the way, don't go too deep. You're not trying to score the chestnut, just the skin. And like this, little cross. So I'll do some and some, and then I'll make 4 different piles, and then we can start our experiment. As I go along, I spotted something, and I thought actually it's quite useful to share with you, especially if you are cooking chestnuts that you've picked in the wild. Look, can you see this one here? Hopefully you'll be able to see in this camera. It's got a little hole, and there's another one here, and also another one here. This will have little guests inside, and there is no point cooking them because they're not going to taste very nice, but also there is a little living creature in there. So I'll put them outside, and I'll put them back in the wild, and they can continue having lots of fun. So do keep an eye as you cut across, because clearly you will be cooking something which is not good, and also unnecessarily ending some little creature's life. And I'm ready to start, and I'm gonna keep this very simple, by the way, and cook everything broadly in the same way. So here is my tray for the oven, and I've got a quarter in there. This is a little pan which I will be using for my taste on the hob. A fryer in the go. And for my wood burner, which I'll do last, I will be using my cast iron skillet, which is what actually I use for my frittatas, and I think it's going to be great because it will distribute the heat evenly, and I'll show you what I've got organized there. But at the moment the fire is on and I'm waiting for it to get nice and warm. Now normally, if there were normal sized chestnuts, I would have actually baked them at a temperature of 200 degrees and something like 30 to 40 minutes altogether. But bearing in mind that these are mini chestnuts, I'm going to reduce the temperature to 180, and the first cooking time in terms of cycle in the oven is going to be for 10 minutes, and then I'll take a look, and then I might put them in for another 10 minutes once I've given them a good shake. In the air fryer, likewise, the air fryers cook considerably quicker, but I would have still used a temperature of 200 degrees. I'm going to lower it to 180 because of the size, and I will be putting them on for about 7 minutes to start with, and then I'll give them a toss and see what they look like. So I'll put the oven and the air fryer on first, and then I'll do the hob next. The hob method is the only one where I'm going to make a slightly different change to the cooking style. I'm going to add just a little amount of water, turn it on maximum, and as soon as the water starts boiling, which it doesn't take long at all of course, I'll place the lid on and I'll turn it down on medium. And as they're only little, I'll wait 5 minutes, otherwise I would have waited 10 minutes, and I'll take a look. I'll show you what they look like then. Halfway through the chestnuts on in the air fryer, I'm going to show you what they look like. You can see that they're very small, so they open up quite easily, but we are checking taste today, not look. So I think another 7 minutes, 180 degrees, and they'll be done. So I'll put them back. 5 minutes have passed, time to check on these ones. Let's take a look. Most of the water has evaporated, which is a good sign of course, and they're beginning to open up. So I'm going to add a little bit more, again same amount, and I'll mix them together, and I'll place the lid on and I'll leave them in there for another 5 minutes. 10 minutes oven check. This is quite unusual but very fun. So not too dissimilar actually to the ones in the air fryer. They've opened up, they look a little bit sorry for themselves as they would because they're small, but I'll just give them a little toss, and I'll put them back in for another 10 minutes, still same temperature. And back to my hop chestnuts once again. Most of the water has evaporated once again, so I will now leave them to continue cooking without any water and without the lid for another 5 minutes. Now with the wood burner it's a totally different story of course, because I cannot really regulate the temperature. If I've got my thermometer here against the back, it reads nearly 400 degrees centigrade, so I'm going to keep an eye on it. And you can of course replicate this by using a barbecue if you like, or even a gas barbecue would be okay. But let me show you my little invention. I'll do it on this camera here. We had an old barbecue, and I've attached a little metal part in here. This is cast iron, this is cast iron. And if you look inside my wood burner, actually the fire has gone down. It's important obviously that there are no more flames, so this is really really hot of course. So what I do, and actually I use this often in the winter, if I want to have a smoked sort of flavour sort of meal, including steaks, I do it in there. So I place this inside, and this will lodge on the back and like this, and this will lodge in the front. You can see it's been made to size of course, and that provides me a perfect griddle. And obviously now I've got my chestnuts, and they can go in like this, and I will gently close the door. They will not close completely, but it will create a little bit of an oven-like sort of situation. And I'll keep an eye on them because they could easily burn. So most probably similar time to the air fryer, 5 minutes. And I've moved the camera a little bit closer, so hopefully you'll get to see better. 5 minutes in, and here they are, look, they're looking quite good. So I'll give them a little toss, just like I did with the ones on the air fryer. And I think they will only need another 5 to 7 minutes, and they will be ready. So I'll close the door once again, and I'll wait until then. Verdict time. So I've got everything beautifully lined up here. I'll give you some feedback on a number of folds. So first of all, cooking time. The quickest was the air fryer and the wood burner. They were very, very similar, within a minute of each other. Followed shortly by the oven and then the hob. But of course, my chestnuts are very small, so you will have to judge it based on the size of the chestnuts that you buy, but generally it is normal that the cooking time on the hob is a little bit longer. Now in terms of texture, I have noticed that to peel off the shell, they were all relatively easy, and the air fryer were the easiest, very shortly followed by the wood burner and the oven. They also were very easy. The hob was also easy, but it was a little bit more fiddly. There is the fact that also they are very small and they are a little bit fiddly to start with, but that rule applied to all of them. So definitely the air fryer, they are considerably easier to peel. And time to taste them. So I've actually obviously peeled them off already to make this little video not longer than what it needs to be. I'll start with the air fryer one first. And it's lovely, as you'd expect it to be. It's not too dry, and it's got lots of flavour. By the way, little tip, I would sprinkle a little salt if I was you. I'm not going to, because I am actually testing what the chestnuts really are like, and I don't want to compromise the taste with anything else. I just want to taste the chestnut. But that's very nice. Let's go for the hob. It's considerably moisture, but not as flavorful than the one on the air fryer. The one on the air fryer, I would say that it's a little bit more rusty as a chestnut goes. The one on the hob is moisture, but doesn't actually have as much flavor as them. Clearly quite nice also, and I would be able to tell the difference if I was blindfolded. Let's go to the oven one next. That is very similar to the air fryer, unsurprisingly. The difference being that it's slightly more moisture, slightly more moist in that one than the air fryer. And I think it's normal because the air fryer cooks quicker and most probably dries them up quicker. But in terms of flavour, I would say they're very similar. If I was blindfolded, I would not be able to tell the difference. But let's go to the wood burner and let's see what this is like now. Head and shoulders above everything else. They are more smoky in flavour, and the texture is also quite moist because I didn't cook them for very long, slightly similar time to the air fryer, but you can definitely tell that they've got a smokiness coming from the fire, which you can of course also get from a barbecue. By the way, in Sicily, I have seen them making them, and I was having a chat with the guy who sells chestnuts already cooked on the side of the road, and they got these very big and tall pipes, and they got the charcoal in at the bottom, and then they got a pot with the holes in the middle, and the heat and the steam comes up from the fire, and then they cook with that, and they put lots of salt, and both in the charcoal they put like rock salt, quite a lot. And the flavor from the salt comes up, and then before they start cooking they also put lots of fine salt on top of the chestnuts when they're raw, obviously with the cut, and you end up with a chestnut which looks almost like with ash on the top, because the salt will release all of the white powdery stuff. And when you buy them from the side of the road, I'm sure that you must have bought them before, even in this country, they are considerably more smoky in flavour, and that is what the wood burner version reminds me of, those chestnuts. So interesting experiment. Clearly not everybody can do it with a wood burner, but it's useful to know that at the very least the air fryer and the oven, they're very similar, and clearly I would always use an air fryer because it's much more convenient. The hob, they're okay, and of course you can also add any other ingredients, like some people put honey, some people put other stuff to give them more flavor. There are hundreds of thousands of recipes with chestnuts, but today I wanted to see what, in my humble opinion, tastes best. So number 1, wood burner. Number 2, level oven and air fryer. Number 3 is the hob. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video. If you also enjoyed my cycle run in the woods, let me know in the comments, and if you've tried anything before, let me know also. It'd be interesting to hear. Thank you for watching, and as always, buon appetito. Ciao ciao.